Girl, hey, welcome to Girl, You Can Do Anything podcast, a podcast for single moms who are rewriting the narrative and reclaiming their power. I am your host, Ambria McDonald. I'm an educator, an advocate, and yes, a single mama. I'm on a mission to heal, grow, and glow from the inside out, honey. So I created a podcast for women just like me. Not only is today launch day, it's our first episode, but also it's Mother's Day. So happy Mama's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there doing what you need to do to take care of you and your little one. So it's not by coincidence that I started the podcast on Mother's Day. It was very intentional. I really wanted this podcast to be birthed on a day that honors us. So if no one else says it today, I see you, I hear you, I understand your story. Here's a safe space for us to grow and to build together. So let's talk about why I started this podcast, like what were the circumstances around it, and then we'll get into a little bit about what this podcast is, what it's not, what you can expect on future episodes. So officially welcome you all to episode 1. Well, since I've been a single mama, I have a 2-year-old Minnie, I have a daughter. There's been plenty of times I've actually felt very alone on this journey. I'll get into my story a little bit later on the podcast. Not today's episode, another one. And I was balancing so much and trying to understand my new role and my identity as a mom. And I'm a 4th-year PhD student at Yale University. And so I was balancing school requirements. I was working a job, and I was in a situation where there was nobody like me, nobody around me doing any of the things that I was doing or even dealing with, I was in an age, I'm in my early 30s, so I was in an age group that were maybe a little bit older when I first started, and then you added in the concept of having a family, so then like dynamics of course are completely different. It's no longer about you in this space, it's about your kid. And so all that to say, there were many times I felt alone, there was many times I felt like there were nobody that understood what I was going through, or the roles that I had to balance, including being a mom and understanding who I was in the process. And we will talk about later a good bit of who you are directly is reflected in your work. And I was in this mind and emotional, physical shift while doing work for school and work for my actual job at the time. And so all of that to say, I understand what it's like to be in a position where you're picking up the pieces of your life. If things go left with, a significant other and you all share a child together, I know what it's like to deal with self-worth issues and figuring out who you are during your motherhood journey. And so I wanted to create a space for us to talk and us to share and us to care and us to be able to share resources and understand what each other are going through and to support each other, lift each other up in the process. But not only that, let's get into the realty, okay? Since I've been a single mom, there's been so many things that I have seen online or seen or been a part of, like conversations, and there's always this narrative about single moms and how, oh, she must have not known how to choose, oh, her self-worth must have been in the gutter, oh, she didn't pick right, ABC 1, 2, 3, or single moms are undesirable and, they got all of this baggage of kids and, potential, people call them baby daddies, right? No. I think the narratives have probably outside of what I initially said, I think the narratives are like the second most pusher, and the reason why I decided to even start this space. There are so many of us out here, unfortunately, but the fortunate part about it is we not all under the bed crying, decrepit, like we don't have lives, like we don't have worth, like we don't have anything to strive for. As a matter of fact, we're probably the most stable, the most patient types of people that you would want in our life, largely because we don't have time for all that extra stuff. We have time to only focus on what we need to focus on. And so I wanted to create, again, a space that broke us outside of the barriers, that no longer limited us to this stereotype. I wanted something to completely depart from what people really do potentially think about us or the stereotype of us. And so I also want to stress that there's a spectrum of single moms. So some folks did, quote unquote, pick the wrong guy. Some people did it the right way. There are some folks who are a whole married out here, and guess what? Single mamas at home. Like they have an entire being, someone that they are married to, living in said household, and they still don't support them with any of the duties with the kids or their goals or whatever else the case may be. So there's a spectrum of single motherhood. We don't all fit in the same box. Shout out to the women who were widowed and they didn't even think that they would be in these shoes. So this podcast exists to affirm all the mothers and all the ways that you are mothering, supporting your transformation and providing you a bit of hope for a better future. In short, we are here to destigmatize what single motherhood is and what it looks like. We're also here to share resources, remind each other, girl, you can still dream big, you can heal, and you can thrive. Girl, you really can do anything. So where did the name come from? Where did girl, you could do anything come from? So let's get into the real T2. Earlier this year, I was laid off of my job and I lost about 60% of my household income. And I didn't go roll around. I wasn't upset. I wasn't in the bed crying, right? I honestly went into full praise and worship mode right after I got the call. All that to say, I had to start like redoing things and revamping and understanding how am I gonna still keep not necessarily the lifestyle, but I like to get my hair done. I like to get my nails done. I like to look nice. I like to keep up on my maintenance. But the extra coins were not available for said maintenance. And so I had to get creative. I had to learn some new skills, learn some new tools. So y'all, I made a wig. Like legitimately, well technically I had the wig already, but it was a different color. The lace was kind of messed up at the closure. The bundles was kind of crunchy. I needed to revamp. So I literally deconstructed the wig, bought a whole new wig cap, dyed the bundles, sewed them in, put my wig clips in, you name it, honey. I did it live. What they say, laid, dyed, fried to the side. I did all of that for this wig because I needed to still look like somebody despite what I was going through. So I made a wig, y'all. And I was like, girl, you did that. And girl, you really can do anything. Like, whatever your hands touch will prosper. Like, you are her. In addition to that, I started reflecting. I'm also a woman of God, and I talk about God and Jesus all the time. So y'all will more than likely hear conversations surrounding God, Jesus, belief system, my belief systems, etc. But I'm also a woman of God, and in that moment of me like literally completing this wig, God, I was like, I really can do anything. anything. And then he reminded me, yeah, that's my word, Ambria. Specifically, John 15:5. And I wanted to read it. And it says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And also in Philippians 4:13, it says, the most probably noted scripture is we put on all of our mugs, put on a t-shirt. That's the one that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So this broadcast was birthed not only out of a place of those belief systems, those anchor scriptures, but it was also practical application. I legit made a wig. I was like, girl, you can do that thing, okay? And so it was all of these pieces of alignment kind of coming together. And then I just had to take the leap of faith. I had to be like, okay, girl, we've been talking about doing this thing. And you was even talking about doing this thing with other people, like kind of in your community. But then, it didn't happen in a certain way. And I was like, no, God definitely gave you the word to do what you need to do. So let's do it. And so we did it. And so here we are. So now let's get into what this podcast is not. We are not going to be here bashing our children's fathers. We're not going to do that. This is not that space. There's a deep belief that I have that, like, if you feel as if they've taken enough for you, then that's it. That's enough. We're not going to continue the narrative, especially in a space that was created for you to thrive. We literally do and really do respect them for the role that they have played in our lives, the role that they've even played in making you a mom. And so beyond that, we're going to leave it at that. We thank you, we respect you for the role that you play, but outside of that, we're not going to talk about them in this space. Now, we will probably discuss co-parenting dynamics, if folks are trying to navigate the court system, what that could potentially look like. But yeah, we're not here to bash. This is also not a Mean Girls Club. I know single moms, I've seen them go back and forth literally online with people talking about, I don't date women with kids. Well, that's their preference, sweetheart, and that's okay. You may not date people with kids either. Like, your kid may be enough for you. It's okay for folks to have their preferences. But yeah, and we're also not going to be plotting on our enemies. We're not going to do that here. Like I said, this is not a Mean Girls Club. We really like to smile. We like to laugh. We like to drink our water, grow our edges, eat clean, go to the gym, lift. This is what we do here. We are not bashing our child's fathers, and we are not plotting on our enemies. Even if sometimes it feels like that's your child's father or his new boo. I don't understand. Some women be trying to go and cause problems in their ex's lives with new women that they're dating. Listen, if they not hurting your child, I don't care how it feels if you feel as if your child's father did you wrong, he burned another woman, he has them around his kids, whatever. And I say that like I don't say that lightly. Like, I completely understand how those things work on your mental and emotional. But again, I'm going to say, at some point, we have to pick up the pieces of our lives, and we have to move forward and learn how to navigate in a new space, even if it's not what we expected, even if it's not what we wanted. Now let's chat about future episodes. So I'm really excited that we're going to be taking a deep dive into a number of things, one of them being resources for going back to school. I really believe here that we choose to level up our lives despite whatever is going on around us. And yes, that does include our kids. And so we'll talk about timetables and time schedules, and we'll talk about programs. As I mentioned earlier, I am a whole doctoral student finishing up. I'm literally dissertating right now, looking to defend the end of this year. It's 2025 for whomever listens to this podcast in the future. But yeah, I am finishing up my PhD right now. And so I've navigated school systems, multiple. Of course, you do your regular training in middle school, high school, etc. But I went to an HBCU for undergrad. I went to a PWI for my master's degree, and I'm now at an Ivy League institution for my PhD. Not only that, I went to junior colleges to get extra credits in the meantime. So, honey, when I tell you I've seen the full gamut of the academic space, we can really get into it. Also, I used to work in the admissions office for my graduate program when I was getting my master's at Baylor University. So I've also seen the inside job of what it looks like and what programs are looking for when they're trying to get candidates and stuff into their program. So we can also chat about that. I also understand that like going back to school can be like daunting, not only like the enrollment process, but you a whole mom, you got all types of responsibilities. You got to pay your bills, you got to take care of your kids, so you got to put food on the table, keep a roof over your head. So I also understand how to get finances and resources and stuff also for going back to school. So we'll talk about those on future episodes. Also, business advice. You may want to start a podcast or you may want to start a business. Whatever that looks like for you, we'll have experts come on to talk about how do you get your LLC, how do you start a nonprofit, how do you get your 501c3. We'll talk about all of those types of things. Well, like I mentioned, we'll do interviews with professionals, whether that's school admissions officers, if we're looking for jobs. We'll talk to HR professionals. We'll also talk to lawyers, financial aid folks. The full gamut will be hosted on the podcast in future episodes. So I'm really excited to get into those. We will also chat about wellness tips because we have to be in alignment, right? We have to be whole, we have to be healed, we have to be transformed within ourselves in order to continue to be the great mother that we are to our kids. And so we'll talk about therapy because girl is needed. And even if it means that's a psychiatrist, to get some medication to help. Like, we're going to talk about those things. We'll also talk about balancing hormones. Okay, nobody told me when you hit 30, you go through a whole nother spectrum of hormones. And then after kids, there's a whole nother set of hormones. And they just be in your body playing around with each other. And you be like, what is happening? Like, why am I breaking out this week and not breaking out this week? Why is fat ain't going nowhere? What's happening? Am I back in wide overnight? Like, what is happening? So we'll talk about balancing hormones because they really do play a role in how healthy we are and like how we feel. It affects our moods. And then of course skincare because honey, we really gotta glow from the inside out, but also we're gonna get this together as well. I also mentioned that I am a woman of God, so we will talk about ministry. We will have folks that are on that are in ministry that also may be single moms that, may have done things, quote unquote, the right way for, whatever that means. But we'll have people in from ministry talking about how they started their ministry or how faith plays a role in their lives, especially as, mothering. And last but not least, I am really going to stress radical transparency here. There's oftentimes a lot, like I said in the beginning, a lot of single mothers get a very bad stigma and the stereotype for literally being a mother and not having a man in the picture, right? And so radical transparency will be front and center. I will share my story. I'll share all of it. I will do it in a respectful manner. Like, we'll talk about the things that need to be talked about. But I also want to share, give a space for other mothers to share as well. They'll share how they've managed their lives to date and how they've navigated single motherhood and achieved their goals kind of despite it. So in short, this podcast is in existence to affirm you, to support your transformation, and to remind you that your story absolutely matters. It is a safe space for you to heal and to blossom into your full potential despite the role of being a single mom. So, girl, meet me here every other week. New episodes drop every other Sunday. Remember, you are not alone. We are healing, we are growing, we are glowing. Let's do this together. Welcome to Girl, You Can Do Anything.